In a world full of strange phenomena and secrets buried deep within the human soul, there are stories that can only be told in whispers, stories written by pens that bleed, pain, and fear. Welcome to MindPop, where we dive deep into the labyrinth of the human psyche, uncovering tales written not just in ink, but in madness, isolation, and agony. In this episode, we'll take you on a journey into the dark side of creativity, where horror stories aren't just fiction, but reflections of the harsh realities lived by their authors. Are you ready to discover true horror? The kind that doesn't lurk in the shadows, but lives deep within the human heart. In the middle of the night, when darkness settles and covers everything, there are still stories that have to be told. Stories written under the crushing weight of fear and pain. These stories weren't simply imagined, they were reflections of real suffering, written down as a way to survive what haunted their creators from within. Since the dawn of time, humans have told stories to escape fear, to give shape to the unknown. And while horror may have taken many forms through the ages, its essence never changed. It has always been about confronting ourselves. The earliest recorded horror story can be traced back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, where humanity first ventured into the underworld, symbolizing its attempt to understand death and fear. As time passed, horror evolved, becoming more human, more personal. Writers began to express their loneliness, their pain, and their deepest fears. Out of that shift emerged 6 of the most iconic horror writers in history, each one transforming their suffering into timeless works. Their lives were the very fuel for their dark creations. What they wrote was a reflection of their inner torment. Mary Shelley, for example, wrote her groundbreaking story in a secluded house in Switzerland in 1818 during a stormy night among fellow writers competing to craft the scariest tale. But Mary wasn't writing an ordinary horror story. She was writing her own. She created Victor Frankenstein, a scientist who brought a creature to life, only to reject it. In truth, Victor was Mary herself, a person who tried to create something meaningful but felt she had only created a monster. Her story echoed her own tragedies, the loss of her mother, the deaths of her children, and heartbreak. Frankenstein was more than fiction, it was her pain inked on every page. Edgar Allan Poe lived a life consumed by madness and sorrow. Orphaned young, rejected by his father, he was plagued by depression and isolation. He married a woman who battled illness for years and watched her slowly die while he was powerless. Poe's world was dark, and his writing mirrored that darkness. In The Telltale Heart, a man kills his friend and is haunted by the sound of his heart beating beneath the floor. A tale that symbolized the inescapable weight of guilt. Poe wrote to escape himself, only to find that the deeper he wrote, the closer he got to the edge of insanity. H.P. Lovecraft was a different case. He lived almost entirely in isolation, deeply afraid of people and the world around him. His stories were filled with beings that defied space and time, entities beyond human comprehension. That's how he saw himself, unfathomable and misplaced in this world. His horror wasn't about what could be seen, but what couldn't be understood. Lovecraft viewed humanity as insignificant in the vastness of the universe, and when he wrote about monsters, he was writing about the nothingness he felt inside. Stephen King, known as the master of modern horror, lived a life full of turmoil. He suffered from addiction, accidents, and emotional instability. He wrote under the influence of alcohol and drugs, sometimes unable to recall what he had written. His stories were about ordinary people battling extraordinary evil, but they were also about the monsters within. For King, writing was a form of therapy. Each terrifying tale was a confrontation with his own demons. The more he wrote about monsters, the more he realized he was creating new ones inside himself. Mary, Edgar, Howard, and Stephen, these writers wrote not just to tell stories, but to escape their own realities. They created worlds where they could face what terrified them. But the more they wrote, the more they discovered that the monster chasing them wasn't outside, it was within. Their lives were a blend of truth and imagination, and what they wrote was far more than scary tales. Their lives were the real horror stories, because on every page, in every word, in every scene, they were facing themselves. In the end, the real monster wasn't in the shadows or in the unknown. It lived inside each of them, in their struggles, their past, and the pain they poured onto the page, hoping to be freed from it. But every time they wrote, they realized that writing didn't silence the monster. It only made it louder. If this kind of story spoke to you, don't forget to support us, share your thoughts, and let us know whose story touched you the most. And have you ever read something that changed the way you look at fear? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming journeys into the world of the mind, myth, and the subconscious. Here on MindPop, we tell the stories that aren't meant to be told.